Hi, I'm Andrew Trauki, the writer, director and producer of Blackwater, The Reef and now The Jungle. So yeah, I was looking around for other stories, and I really started researching three ideas. One was about UFOs. I like UFOs, but there was a film made by the guy who did Paranormal Activity, and that was meant to be coming out. I think it's called Area 51. Well, I've never seen it, but anyway, it put me off doing UFOs. And then I was going to do a thing about the underground tunnels here in Sydney. There's underground sewerage works, and I thought that'd be spooky and interesting. But then another bunch of filmmakers made a film called The Tunnel. So then I went to my third idea, which was sort of shapeshifters and werewolves and people that could change from human form into animal form, and I started looking into that, and that got really interesting, especially because around here in Asia, some parts of Asia, Indonesia and Malaysia and places like that, there's a lot of belief around that sort of thing. Wizards, or not wizards, but they're druids, they're shamans, they're sorcerers who can turn into animals at will and then go and do horrible things. There's a story in Indonesia about a man who could turn into a tiger and attack his enemies. So I started researching that, and that became pretty interesting to me. And I've always been interested in Asia, especially our neighbours, Indonesia, or actually all of Asia. I think Asia's an amazing place. So it really excited me that I could do a story that was about a shapeshifter that was set in Indonesia, and had the potential to, it was in the jungle, so it had the potential, all the right elements to be quite spooky and eerie and hopefully scary. So some of the scenes that were difficult, well, quite frankly, what was difficult about the film was the shooting style. Like my other films, I like a lot of coverage. I like editing. I'm big on editing, so I like to get a lot of coverage, and then when you come into the edit suite, you've got a lot of choices. Well, with this film, it was really, because it's a found footage film, it was really more of a choreography. You had to take it from that one camera point of view, the POV of the cameraman. And so we'd do these very long takes where we'd just try and, first of all, we'd just do them, and then we'd start to choreograph them to see if we could get the camera working a bit better so we didn't have to cut. And that was quite tricky. That was really tricky, because then when you got into the edit suite, you were really bound to this shot, and you didn't have much material to cut away to. So I found that quite tricky for the whole film, actually. And indeed, the other tricky thing was there's no music, so you can't use, in a thriller, you typically use music to build the tension. It's famous. We build it with the strings or whatever, and it gets eerie, and then it stops, and then bang. With this thing, we had to try and use the sound design to that. So overall, it was a very tricky. I found this a tricky form. I think the found footage film is a tricky form. I thought it'd be easier than it was, really. In terms of specific scenes, the one that probably causes the most problem is the creature coming down the tree. But we tried that lots of different ways to make it look as realistic as possible, and yeah, that one kept on having to go back and forward between us and the effects team to get it right. And then in terms of the shoot, I swore never to work in water again after The Reef, and yet for this thing, for one of the weeks it was pouring, and the jungle quickly turns to mud, and so that cameraman wasn't happy, no one was happy with that situation, and you do one take and everyone's muddy, and continuity and things like that. So it was, the tricky part of the film was that I got water again, which I didn't really want. At least I wasn't in the water for 4 weeks, but yeah, that was tricky. The good thing was that one day we came back into the jungle, and the art director who'd stayed behind to mind everything pulled up a big snake, and the snake that's in the film we actually found in the jungle, and we used it for the shot, and then when we'd finished we just let it go, and it was a nice feeling to see the snake just slither off back into the jungle. So that was a nice part of the shoot, one nice part of the shoot, yeah. Some of my favourite creature films, well, you can't go past Jaws. I think the shark now at the end, when he comes on the boat, it's hard to buy that anymore. With technology and everything, it's hard. But at the time, it was a very scary film, and great shark. The rest of it, I think, the beginning of the stuff with the shark, where you hardly see it, we just see it gliding through the water, is brilliant. So, of course, Jaws. Like Jurassic Park, or indeed any. For different reasons, I really like the Japanese, dinosaur and Godzilla type films. And I suppose in that light I like Pacific Rim. But yeah, what other ones? I like The Edge, which is not that well known. It's about a bear actually, but that's got a good story, and it's quite scary. There's lots of other sort of sci-fi creatures like The Thing, which is great. They're good films. And then I guess if you call humans creatures, then there's a whole bunch of bad human films that I like. But they're good. I mean, I think the great thing about creature films or big animal films is they're so primitive. It's such a primal fear that it taps into. It taps into our fear of being eaten, which, we've been around for whatever millions of years. That fear's always been there. We've never been the biggest animal on the savannah. We've always been pretty puny, and so we've got that fear really there. So it's easy to tap into that fear of getting eaten or destroyed by a big animal, and that's kind of cool, I reckon. And some of my favourite directors, well, like I said before, I really like suspense rather than gore and those sorts of aspects. So in terms of that genre, the two that come to mind are Alfred Hitchcock, especially Psycho, and Sam Raimi for Evil Dead. They're both films that I admire a lot for various reasons. I mean, I think Hitchcock was a master of holding back, and I think the sound design in Evil Dead and the humour is fantastic. So the two films and two directors that I really enjoy the work of. Let me think. Who would I like to see eaten by an animal? Well, I really like George Clooney as an actor, so maybe that would be fun. And also because he's so cool, it'd be kind of different to see a cool, sophisticated guy getting eaten by an animal. Maybe I'll stick with George Clooney, and always want to see Scarlett Johansson on the screen, so maybe her as well. Maybe they can get eaten together by a large killer whale or something. I really hope you enjoy The Jungle. I hope you get what I tried to do, which is to make it a slow burn, make it about anticipation and suspense and building that dread through sound and just quietness. It's about a certain pace, just building that slowly. And I hope it's finally, it sort of spooks you out in the end. I enjoyed making it. It was a lot of fun. It's never. I never know whether my films are successful or not. They're just a leap of faith. You write something, then you go off and raise the money, and you try to make something that will scare people or be fun at least. So I hope you enjoy it, and if you do, let me know.